Hey, everybody, welcome to the only daily self-publishing podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Sutton. I'm joined today by Tom Stepkowski. He is the owner of Tom Step Coaching. He is the author of I can't talk. He is the author of Ready, Fire, Aim, Later. And we're going to be talking about some amazing stuff. Tom, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Oh, wow. Thank you for having me. What a great idea, Jeremy. As I told you before, this is fabulous. And I'm so ecstatic to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Oh man. We were talking before the podcast, and Tom, I think you're an amazing person. I'm super humbled and honored to talk to you today. And I want to, first just kind of tell me about your book and what made you decide to write it.
Yeah, I was making a collection. I was just reading about other people. I love biographies, autobiographies, and I just kept reading, and I just noticed that it seemed that person after person after person just seemed to have the same qualities, the same drive, the same themes just kept popping up. And instead of marking up the books, I just decided to mark up my journal. And then after reading, 50 to 100 books on all these people, I says, you know what, I let me just make a collection so I don't have to go back and read all these books. And I'll just write my own. And I came up with about 24 ideas to 30 of what I thought were like the top things that these successful people were doing. And I narrowed it down to 16 and I put them into a book, and I turned it in. It's called Ready, Fire, Aim, Later. And the title is basically, it's basically one of the chapters, it's just burn your boats and do it. Don't sit there and wait, wait later on, when you see your book or hear your book read in front of you, or you do a fireside chat with your book, or you listen to other people interpret it. That's a time when you finally can sit down and learn how to get better, because we all want to get better, but to sit and wait and to look for some type of authority to say, hey, you are allowed to publish a book today. That it just doesn't make sense. So that's basically why I wrote it.
I love it. So your book resonates with my soul because once my co-author of my book, Neck Pain Solutions, his name is Mark Green. He's a physical therapist as well. And we were we did a video series for our book. So it's all about exercise with neck pain. And then we did a video for every exercise because sometimes you need to see it instead of just read it and see a picture. And he said, man, we're such, we work so well together. He said, because I'm a ready, aim, fire kind of person, maybe. And he's talking to me and he's like, you're a fire and you don't even get ready or aim. And I'm like, yeah. So, but sometimes you need to even out some of that stuff. So yeah, I love the title and I love the premise behind, we talked about beforehand, you journaled for years as a school counselor and you just started seeing these patterns. Talk about that a little bit, how there's really nothing new. There's nothing new in the world, Tom. I don't think we just regurgitate and repackage things. So, what made you decide, hey, let's share this?
Yeah, I think that the key to everything basically in life is simplicity. I think when we start to overanalyze stuff and we make things sound complicated, more complicated than they need to be, I think that's when we start to lose people. So for me, I'm a simple person. I wanted to just keep it simple. Even when I talk about the book and talk about chapters in the book, I like to keep everything very, very simple. I'll even, quote some people that I've read to say, hey, I did not make this up. So-and-so made this up, or so-and-so talks about this. And the reason it's in my book is because I totally believe in it. And if you wait another 2 or 3 years, somebody else will write another book and you're going to see this inside of this, or you'll watch a podcast in 3 years from now and they'll still be saying this maybe just a little bit differently than I am, but they're things that you need to like, number one, burn your boats. You know what I mean? You got to have skin in the game and you got to be all in. That's hence the title, Ready, Fire, Aim, Later.
I love it. I feel like we just started into a Hamilton song. You said you got to have skin in the game. I don't know. My wife and I have watched that like 17 times, I think. So you just made me go back to Alexander. I won't sing. So you wrote your book. I want you to talk about something you said before we hit record, where when did the possible become impossible? Tell me about that. What does that mean to you?
I actually got it from Jenna Kutcher on a Dean Graziosi episode with Tony Robbins, through KBB. And she basically said it. She said, I don't understand where these self-imposed rules have come out that have said you can't do this or you can't do that. And I think that's what drew me, Jeremy, to you and your podcast was you in that car saying, who says you can't write a book? And it's almost as if like around the 12-year-old range, we start to get a little bit serious. Mom, dad will say, hey, you better start hunkering down with those grades. And, we got to get into college. And, it's all great advice, but the bottom line is it starts to make us almost play a little bit smaller and a little bit more careful. And it starts to make us not dream and start to imagine and what if, and why can't I write a script? And I mean, could you imagine if like Sylvester Stallone said, I'm not going to write the Rocky script, you know what I mean? And shot it around to 1,500 people and get 1,500 no's before somebody finally says yes. Imagine if they stopped, or if Walt Disney stopped when he was told, your idea is just crazy. And finally the 206th banker finally said, fine, I'll finance Walt Disney World. I mean, if those people had stopped because they thought, let's get real here. Let's get more serious here. I'm never going to make this. Then you're just shooting yourself in the foot. And that's kind of why I wrote the book, while I will continue to write, while I tell anybody that watches the podcast, you write, listen to what Jeremy says, write, and don't stop. When does the impossible become the impossible? And if it has, and you're playing a little bit too small and too safe, and you're afraid to write that book, you really need to go back in your life and figure out, when did the impossible become the impossible for you, and start to dream again and uncover that before you put that book out there.
Oh man, I love that. That's some amazing advice right there. So I grew up, I've always loved football. I played all throughout school, and I wasn't horrible. I'm short and I'm a little slow. So I really could have gone to a small college, but I just didn't want to. But anyway, I remember watching Steve Tasker, who used to play for the Buffalo Bills, this short guy, and he was always on special teams, and he usually made the tackle. And I remember thinking as a kid, like, I wanted to play in the NFL. Obviously, it didn't happen. But I remember thinking, like, Steve Tasker had to have this dream when he was little. And then he had to continue that dream when he got older and when he became a college student and an adult. And if he can believe in himself, why can't I believe in myself? Like, it's, everybody that started or plays in the NFL started out as a child, a baby in the womb, and then grew up. And then everybody that became an author and a podcast and whatever it is. Like, why not you? Who is stopping you from doing that? Like you said, it's usually yourself.
It's usually yourself. Yeah. It's your beliefs. You got to go back in and somehow fix those beliefs. And that's why, when I work with people with coaching, the number one thing is your mindset. I'm going to work on your belief, whatever you want to do. You want to write a book, you want to be a football player, you want to do this, you want to do that. That's irrelevant. The most important thing is that, the salesperson, Jeremy, that the selling is the part. Build it and they will come. No, that's not how it works. You must sell and put, like you said in your other podcast, put yourself out there, because if you don't, you're robbing other people. You're not sharing your gifts, and by not sharing your gifts, you're taking yourself out of the game. You're all of a sudden becoming more real, more realistic, putting on a jersey, but with somebody else's name on the back, not your own. And when does that start? We all like to cheer our teams on, but I think we take our own names off the back of our jerseys too early in life, and keep your own on. You know what I mean? And keep yourself in the game, right?
Absolutely. I love that. What this reminds me of a friend of mine who, this has nothing to do with the podcast, but he was like, I don't understand why grown men wear another grown man's name on their back. So I agree with that. Put your name on your back. And I'm really bad about wearing, I have my Book Boss Publishing hat that someone embroidered and made for me. It's in my living room, and I'll wear it. And I asked my wife, I said, is it weird that I wear my own stuff? She's like, no, like, you have to believe in yourself and you have to promote yourself and things like that. And that doesn't come natural to me. That's not who I am either, but we have to be that person if you want to grow. And I've told this story before on other podcasts where I had a business, we had a physical therapy clinic, and we had to file bankruptcy. We were sued twice, things I never thought I would do in my entire life, and they happened. And so I told my wife, I said, I'm going to take 6 months off. I worked, but 6 months I'm going to decide what I want to do with the rest of my life. And we decided that, Book Boss Publishing, and that's what we're doing. But, it took me a year before I made real money.
Right.
I think I was almost ready to give up, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to give up. This is my dream. And then I started making money, and I'm like, okay, so what if I would have given up in September of 2020 or whatever, then wouldn't have this.
That's the crazy part. Like I said before, I mean, imagine if Walt Disney stopped. Imagine if Colonel Sanders stopped, and at age 60, Kentucky Fried Chicken you wouldn't be eating that chicken. So it's like, and you know what else? Jeremy, you really reminded me of a great. I don't even know who said the quote, but the richest place in the world. It's not Dubai, it's not United States. It's unfortunately it's the graveyard. Because when you're at the graveyard, I mean, think of all of the ideas never hatched, books never, books never written, right?
Wow.
All of the buildings never erected, all the apps never created, all of these things that never came to fruition because somebody did not want to put themselves out there, and it's really the only way to do it. And I'm so glad that you have this podcast that, for me, it is about book writing, but it's also about, what I mean, your ideas, getting them out there. And a book is a perfect place to be, with a book.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you say it's the ideas that never hatched and the books that were ever written. And I love that quote. I'm going to use it. But I was talking to someone in a previous podcast. She was like, well, I don't know if I'm a good fit for your podcast because, I really haven't figured out this whole book thing. I've written a book, but I'm not doing well marketing. And I'm like, no, you're perfect because you are in a part of this journey that other people go through. And we need to know about that. You don't have to have all the cards laid out in front of you. You don't have to have it all figured out. We all need to know the truth like this. Sometimes it works out easy and it just takes off, but most times it doesn't. You have to do things and you have to work hard. So we need to be realistic, and there are no overnight successes.
No,
that's a lie.
Well, and especially, the kids that I counsel in my school, they're all looking, and I always do the funny thing. I look around and they're like, Mr. Stepp, what are you doing? I said, I'm just looking for the easy button because, as you know, it's not in my office, and nothing is going to be easy. You have to work hard, right? So I love it. I love that you did not make money out of the gate.
Yeah, I didn't. I wish I would have, but I don't, because it's funny. I had my first dive into online entrepreneurship was a course, and it was $47, and I just did it to prove a concept. Hey, does this work? Can I do it? And will people want it? And I remember I made $1,300, and like I said, I'm a physical therapist. I'm still full-time, transitioning out. Hopefully, when that happens this year, next year, whatever. But I was on a bus. We were going to a conference for work, and my coworkers were sitting beside me. I have my app on my phone, and it sounds like a cash register when somebody buys it. Cha-ching. And that's not, I didn't put that on there. That's just the app. It's a Stripe, my Stripe account or Weebly or whatever.
Yeah.
And like, I'm sitting over there in the corner, and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, yes. Oh yeah. And they're like, what's wrong? I was like, I just made $150 on the bus ride over here, and it was such a rewarding experience, Tom, because it was something that I created. I believe, so I'm a Christian. I believe God gave me the desire and the gifts, but it's still like I created this, and it's just an amazing feeling. And then you're like, okay, now the hard work begins, because now you have to deliver.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and $150 doesn't make you rich.
No, it doesn't. I thought the funniest thing was last year when the government sent me I believe it was, the 1099 or whatever, and saw how much I made. I was just like, I could go out and get coffee. And it was just funny that I was filing and actually using, the proceeds, from the book. I was like, this is funny, but it's real. It is real. It's not millions, but it's real. So I really think that people, I hope this has been disproven many times, is you're not going to get rich selling a book or writing a book, unless you're a Tony Robbins or Dave Ramsey or, some of those guys who already have a massive marketing machine that they're pumping out millions of dollars probably a day to market to people. But what you can do is you can build a coaching program and a mastermind and an online course. And that's some of the things that you've done, Tom. And so tell me about, how that's opened doors and what you've done with it. So, one of the things that I did was, I had basically put out the book, and, obviously I sent it to all my friends and family first. And of course they graciously purchased. And then, we took it and, I did a fireside chat and brought in some people. And that to me, I think, was when the magic happened, because I was able to see my work through other people's eyes and to hear them churn it out instead of me churn it out, and hear how they interpreted a chapter. And that I think is a really, really important thing. My advice is that anybody that writes a book, make sure that you're not afraid to get with people and have a little book club, a little fireside chat, and say, hey, what did you think of this chapter? Talk to me about this chapter. Tell me about your favorite chapter. What, is there a point in your life, that you could share that came out? Because that I really never expected. And then from there, I decided to turn it into a class where, we don't read the whole book, but I take out some of the more finer points. And we just basically go through them and show you how to goal set. And so, we've turned it into a couple of masterminds. I wrote another mastermind called the EEC. It's the Entrepreneurial Educator Circle. It's sort of like educators learning how to flex their entrepreneurial muscles. And, we've talked about a book, being an idea. And then I just basically put it into a couple courses. I have my YouTube channel where a lot of these chapters, the 16 chapters in it, you're going to see me actually doing the chapter live, you know what I mean, where I'll actually talk through the chapter. And then from the YouTube channel, I've been able to, basically bounce it to the Instagram and then into the Facebook. And it's just talking about the same topics over and over. And it just helps reach more people, you know what I mean? And it's great because I wrote this book 2 years ago and I'm still talking about it, still sharing the concepts. I don't think these concepts are going to go away for a while because they were there 20 years ago and they're going to be there 20 years from now. So
yeah, that's amazing. It's funny. You said, I just wrote this book 2 years ago and I listened to someone on a podcast not too long ago. I believe it was the person that gave me the idea to start this podcast. He said, we're going to talk about my new book today. And then he laughed. And he said, I wrote this book 4 years ago, but I haven't written another one since. So it's still my new book. And he's like, so no matter when somebody listens to this podcast, they're going to say, oh, this guy's new book. Let's go check it out. And I thought that was such a brilliant way to use your words and promote your book and feel like it's a brand new thing because, this is your new book because you haven't written another one yet. And so we talk about it. And if it's relevant, like you said, you studied all these other books and these journals that you wrote for years. And if it's relevant 20 years ago, it's probably going to be relevant in another 20.
Oh, I think that's why I wrote it, because I said, I don't want to write something like, because I've gone back and read a couple of books that were written 40, 50 years ago. And I could start to see where, because of technology and the way things have changed. And I wanted to make sure I wrote something that, you could pick up a long time from now and written in 2018 or 2019 can still be relevant in 2030. And the videos will still be relevant. Of course, I'll look different, but yes.
Right. Yeah. I saw something the other day. Clubhouse is this new craze right now in social media. And there's already been 2 or 3 books written on growing your business with Clubhouse. Well, those books will be obsolete probably next week because it's, they've already changed the logo of it. I opened it on my phone. I haven't looked at Clubhouse in weeks since the first time, but it's like it won't be relevant in 2 years.
Isn't it crazy? It's just crazy.
It's amazing. And now, Mark Cuban is getting into podcasting and all these things are happening. And so, there's podcasting's not going away. Writing books is not going away.
No. And especially with the pandemic, it's if anything, they're talking about when the pandemic is over, what kind of changes are there going to be going forward? And I think podcasting is not only here to stay. I think it's so hot right now, and it's just going to, there's just going to be, everybody's going to almost have a podcast. It's going to be like, well, what are we going to do next? Who's going to do something different? You know what I mean? I think that's where Clubhouse came from. It just said, okay, let's try to do the next new thing,
Yeah. I mean, look at what it's going to do to our education system in our country, where you have a ton of, even the colleges are doing online learning. And, I don't think it's been super successful at the grade level where my children are, first, and, third grade and kindergarten. But I think in college, it's fine, because in college, if you don't want to get educated, you're not, regardless of whether it's virtual or in person. So, and I know there's a lot more, I'm not qualified to talk about that, but just as my own thoughts, there's going to be so many changes. And I've even started researching how to start a live Roku channel. And realized just a couple of nights ago that you can do that very inexpensively, and then have a whole new audience into your world. So there's so many just amazing things that are happening.
A lot of amazing things happen. I mean, think about the recording industry and the record industry. That folded pretty quickly. You know what I mean? I don't think any of us saw that coming. But once Napster came and a couple other companies came and the internet, and so you got to change. And if you don't adapt, then you're left, not like you just said, Jeremy, non-relevant. And you got to be able to adapt. So hey, why am I on the podcast here today? Because I believe in it. Because it's the next new thing. So we gotta keep going. And in 20 years, whatever's, if I gotta be doing TikToking in the next, I'll do it. I don't want to.
Sure.
But
Sure. Yeah. It's funny. I've resisted on a few things, and TikTok is one of those that I'm still resisting, and I don't know if I'll do it or not. But I have a friend who I'll help write a book eventually, and he has 100,000 followers on TikTok now. He coaches executives how to get in shape, and he looks like he was chiseled out of stone. So that probably helps him grab more followers. And I'm bald, so it's not going to be great for me. But it's great for his business, and he gets clients daily from there that pay him several $1,000s a month to help them. But I think we have to like I said, go with the times and see what's going to happen. And I really think that podcasting, if you have a business, especially something coaching or whatever, and you want to grow it, you need to have a podcast.
Yes,
that doesn't, and now we're not talking about books, but podcasts. But a book is another way. I can take these podcast episodes and I can turn this into a book later. I can reach out to you in 6 months, say, hey, Tom, is it okay if I turn this into a chapter in a book, and I'm going to publish you as an author in a second book? And you're going to say yes or no, and then probably. Yeah,
that's a really, really good point. I think again, it's that belief system, and I hope that if anybody learns anything from the podcasting that you're doing, about the daily self-publishing, that nobody is telling you that you can't, and you have to do it. And it's almost like, can you imagine if somebody said, I can't podcast, or I can't run a mastermind, or I can't do a YouTube channel. I can imagine if people just kept doing that. It's so, to me, like you said, this space and the coaching space, the podcasting, the writing of books, reading other people's books, fireside chats, all that stuff, it all goes together. And I'm glad that you used this medium, the book writing, because it's so many people have secretly written and have not published, and there's something there's like a wall that's there, and I'm hoping that wall starts to come down, because I think once it does, and you're way into your podcasting, and you're way into a year or two, you're going to be the reason that people came out with that book, and that to me would be the best honor ever.
Yeah, I hope so. And that's really, one of the many reasons why I'm doing this and why I do help people write books, is because, I feel like once you accept your authority in whatever it is you have, then you can really start to change lives, because you step into your purpose. And, I feel like we all have one purpose, and I can't meet your purpose, Tom, and you can't meet mine. So one of the things you said about, writing books or other people's books, my co-author, I know you can't see good, his name's Mark Green, for Neck Pain Solutions. We wrote this together. He said, okay, I'm going to write books. And so he wrote 18 to 20 books in 3 months, and they were all kind of cliff notes for other business books.
Wow.
And he started making about $800 a month on these books.
Unbelievable.
I mean, that's what some people make at their full-time job,
Yeah.
I mean, it is. And so that's not a lot of money, but it's, if you're doing something else and you say, hey, I can, make $800 a month and I'm not even doing ads. Well, that's a pretty big deal. And if you can write 20 books, it's amazing. Anyway,
I think the book that did it for me was back in, I think it's late 90s or early 2000s, was Rich Dad Poor Dad, by Robert Kiyosaki. And I had read that book, and I didn't obviously learn how to use the financial part, the financial advice that he was talking about, even though I found it to be incredibly important. But what I did find was that he would tell stories later, sort of like in videos and stuff. And he would talk about, my book is the number one, personal finance book in the world. It has the most sales. And he used to get not hate mail, but just people saying, how dare you? You're not an author. You're not a this, you're not that. And he says, I don't claim to be an author. I really don't claim to be an author. But I can claim of having the most sales for a personal finance book. He says, as a matter of fact, I write horribly. He says, but that's not why I'm doing this. And I think when I heard him say that, that's when it made me write my first book, which was about tennis. I'm a tennis instructor as well. And I was like, you know what? If he's right. I took my tennis book, my tennis stories, and put it into a tennis book, a self-help book about tennis back in 2008. And then I was just like, you know what? Now I'm going to do another one because, again, it's you don't have to be an author. You know what I mean? By trade. You know what I mean? You don't have to go to school for 4 years to be an author. You just write. And I love that about your message. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I'm not a writer either. I was never trained in writing, but I have editors, especially now that I have a team of editors and formatters and book cover designers, because, I have designed book covers, and some of my clients, I've made their book covers, but I'm not a book cover designer. And so I go find somebody to do that. No, because we don't have to do everything. We just have to have the vision and share our thoughts and our methods. So absolutely love that. Tom, I'd love for you to give us 3 to 5 tips for people who want to write a book. And I think you've already, have a book club or a fireside chat, do live chapter readings, make your book relevant. But I'd love to hear, 3 to 4 more tips that you have for people who want to become an author and use it for their business.
Yeah. Well, so number one is one of the chapters in my book is, it's about, reverse engineering. And we all know how it works. It's laying it out and just work from behind and just move backwards. And Jeremy, I'm going to tell you right now, you got to post what I read that, when you talked about how to write a book, and you put it in about maybe 6 different little paragraphs. I don't know if it was a post that you just did. If you can somehow reshare that post, that post was one of the best ones I've seen, because what? I actually did every single one of those things that was in there without even knowing it. So I'm not even going to try to start to explain what to do. They just got to make sure that they see that post again, because it explained exactly in such simple terms how to put your book together. You know what I mean? From start to finish. And it's actually from finish to start, get your ideas, get them into a journal, so that's number one. Number two, biggest tip, you do not have to be an author to publish a book. Okay. You don't have to be LeBron James to play basketball. You just have to want to do it. And nobody is standing there like the publishing police saying that you cannot self-publish. So I think when you get that belief system, going, that would be, the other one. And I think I probably end it with one more chapter for my book. It's offense wins championships. I know we always hear in football, especially you, Jeremy, that defense wins championships, but no. Offense wins championships. You must be offensive with your day. You must plan your day. You must plan your writing. You must plan each day with a needle moving activity, one more step closer to that book, and just do it piece by piece by piece by piece until all of a sudden it's all together. And then you just go through the steps. Are you going to write the book in a week? No, it's not going to happen that way. But if you just concentrate on those daily offensive-minded activities, needle-moving activities, what's going to get you a step closer in the book? Instead of playing defense all day and answering people's emails and text messages, you're just going to make somebody else's dream come true. You got to work on your dream every day. Those are my top 3.
I love it. I love those top 3. And we'll add in the other ones that you already said to the last ones. But, oh, man, Tom, I think that, one, you're very gracious, and thank you so much for being so gracious to me and the things that I've done, because I don't think I'm anything special. But,
you are. You're giving us the platform, and believe me, I jumped on it. I knew it was going to fill up, so that's why I'm here.
I appreciate it. It has built up. Man, so if somebody wants to work with you, Tom, check out your book, where can they go, and how can they find you and everything that you've done?
Everything is tomstepcoaching.com. Right there. So you just go to tomstepcoaching.com. YouTube is at tomstepcoaching.com. Instagram, tomstepcoaching. Facebook is tomstepcoaching. Tomstepcoaching.com/the-book. That way. Ready, Fire, Aim, Later. I didn't realize that 700 other people use that title for their book. So I don't know if I'd go and Google that or go to Amazon, but it's very easy to find me, and would love to chat about anything that you ever want to chat about. As you could tell, I'm a chatter. I love it.
Me too, Tom. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been amazing.
Jeremy, thank you so much for having me. Good luck with everything. This is such an amazing opportunity for me and all the other writers that are going to now come out and publish their books.
Love it.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. Please rate, review, and subscribe. For more inspiring conversations like this one, I invite you to join my free Facebook group, Book Boss Tribe. If you're ready to write your book, I want to invite you to book a free call with me or sign up for my free course. You can get both of those at linktree/bookboss.